Okay, so we are talking about how can you adjust your teaching methodology uh, and select an approach which can adjust with the knowledge, experience, expectations of the target learners. Okay, so what happens in ESP classrooms? We know that there are people who are coming with different level of knowledge. They have different experiences with the language, and their expectations might be different um, of these learners, right? So what do you do? Now, when we say that they are coming with, different expectations, we mean that these might be different groups of people. So within a single group, we try, as far as, ESP is concerned, we try to put people whose expectations are similar, who belong to the similar, um, who belong to the similar setting, to the similar profession. Their experiences with the profession and the language are similar. Okay, so would be their knowledge. So we put them in one group, right? Then we can adjust. If we are teaching two groups of people with different expectations and with different experience and knowledge, then we would be teaching them a different course of ESP again, right? For instance, if when it comes to the level of the knowledge, so we can divide people or the students into beginners, learners who are beginners, learners who are at the intermediate level, and those who are at advanced level. Okay, now if we say that the modern approach is learner centered approach. Okay, but practically speaking, this learner centered approach works better with the students at an intermediate and advanced level. Students who do not know anything in the language, which is rare in ESP. So a teacher-centered approach is better for them. Okay, so the teacher leads the class, right? Whereas while their level is a little higher, intermediate or advanced, then of course, a learner-centered approach would work for them. For different coming from these levels, which are much of the time for um, general English, also coming to teaching to the professionals. For instance, when it comes to business students or law students, so what kind of material or approach we would have? Probably we would have case study approach. Okay, we would like to talk about cases. Okay, by case study, you mean how can they write formal business letters? How can you prepare them for the job interviews? How can you help them in writing the CV? How can you train them to attend the business meeting? Okay, similar is the case with the law students. You can adopt a case study approach. You can take cases, even you can take authentic sample of the court cases if you have an access to, and then you can see what vocabulary is required for them, or what structures they might need more, or the conversational styles that might be the needs of their profession. Okay. Then in the engineering context, you can have the experimental methods, you can have the data-centered approach. Okay. Um, and another one is hospitality or medical field, which we probably would do in detail while we will be dealing with one of the courses is the role play activities in the class, right? Because for the people in the medical field or in hospitality industry, they interact. Okay, they basically, their profession is about their role. They take up this role for the hours that they are working. or for the hours that they spend at their workplaces, they actually are in that role. They are in the role of the doctors, they are in the role of the nurses, they are playing the role of the paramedics, surgeons, etc., and etc. So role play happens to be one of the best techniques to teach English to the people of these fields. Okay. Now, when it comes to architecture, um, we can have task based, because they really need to do tasks. They don't have to converse much with people, but their their job is basically task based. So when you are teaching them language, you can give them several tasks. Okay, so the approach can be project based, or it can be task based. Now what happens is the problem with choosing one of the approaches or some of the activities for a particular group of people of a certain profession is um, the ethnic the ethnic context also, and their geographical background as well. For instance, you know, in Asia, specifically the Southeast Asia, most of the classes still are teacher centered. Okay, learners are passive, and since school times they are passive, so they don't demand to be active in the classrooms. Okay, you must have noticed that still our classrooms at university level also are teacher centered, not learner centered. So the teachers can easily play a PowerPoint, and the students keep on listening silently, watching the slides, listening to the teacher, passively sitting in the classrooms, not participating, and trying to learn things that way. But this does not happen when it comes to a foreign context. It comes to European context, or it comes to American context, because there the teaching and learning is student centered. As in the previous semester also we saw, in the movement of these methods, the methods actually moved from teacher centered to student centered, and finally when we reached to communicative language approach, it was thoroughly a student centered approach. So when the context is becomes foreign, European or American, then the students need active participation, and the approach has to be task based. They cannot be passive learners because they have never learned passively. So context also matters, and for this context, you need to take care of the material. For which context are you creating the customized material, right? So you need to look at the level knowledge, then at their profession, what might be their need. Okay, as we have already learned that in some of the professions they might need to write more. In some other profession they might need to talk more. So the focus on the skills is also different. It also varies, right? And then of course the geographical context also matters for selecting, for choosing a method to teach, and also the material that you are creating, right? Now coming to we would read it later on. Once we are done, then you will have a better understanding of these tasks. Right now we are doing data driven learning, DDL. Now this data driven learning is similar to using of the technology, especially the softwares. Okay, um, you may find the name of the softwares here that we have already done. NCOC is here, and then there is BNCweb, right? These are the corpus tools. NCOC general, this. Now what you need to look here, it's just an example, okay? This is how it looks when you enter the data, right? So this is the screen of the NCOC program, and what they have done is they have put the data or the authentic samples of a particular profession, right? And what they air traffic control, okay? So they have put the authentic samples of air traffic control, and what they found out is here, cleared approach. So these two words are very much a part of the corpus that they have run through NCOC, okay? So the display reveals learners that clear can be used in the phrase cleared approach or cleared for approach, and the difference in the meaning, is rather subtle. So you need to teach them how to and where can they use this cleared approach, right? So this is the sample taken from air traffic control, and this is their corpus that you have run in NCOC, and this gives you the frequency, the most frequently occurring two words together, okay? 0 knots to okay, cleared approach, from loner, cleared approach 27, all of these. When they tell the plane to land and they declare that the approach is clear, they can land, okay? Right. So this is how, NCOC screen looks like, and it works. Now, what are the problems with the material in ESP? The biggest problem is related with the authenticity. Okay. What happens is you take the samples. If you do not take the complete sample and in context, the sample loses its authenticity, because any discourse taken out of context, you see, you take half the conversation because that is what you think you need, and you leave the initial part of the conversation where students or you do not know what might be the context of the ongoing conversation, that then that sample does not remain authentic any longer, okay? Because you have uh, taken it out of the context, right? And initially also we define authenticity of the sample as the actual used by the people, actual use of the language by the people. And much of the time we take authentic sample as the language used by the native speakers, okay? That can be in any form, that can be in the written form as they write the blogs, research journals, their movies, drama, their conversation, their presentation, anything, okay? So the first contentious issue, and the biggest one also, is about the authenticity. How can you keep the sample authentic? How can you just keep it in context? Because as soon as you take that out of the context, you lose the authenticity, and the sample becomes a little artificial, okay? So now if you have taken the material which is authentic and you know that it is authentic, again there are problems with the authentic material, in a sense that the authentic material might be difficult. For instance, when you are watching English movies, sometimes you are unable to listen properly. By listening properly, I mean you're unable to understand what they're saying. You might know vocabulary when it is spoken separately. Excuse me. But you do not understand the dialogues or their accent, especially. So, authentic material can be difficult sometimes for the students. Okay. Then the second thing that comes with authentic material, if it is authentic, it might be boring. Students might not be interested. Okay. The sample that you have brought in the class to teach them, they might not be interested. And there can be a number of reasons why they might not be interested, because it might be removed from their context. They're unable to connect things. The culture is so much different. What you have brought to the classrooms, they are unable to understand. Okay. So one thing is is the difficulty in getting the authentic material, and then there are difficulties within the authentic material, deciding about the authentic material. And then it can be difficult, it can be boring, it can be removed from the student concept, context, what they can culturally understand. So now, how authentic can be a sample? Okay, the degree of authenticity, you can look here. It can be very, very weak if it is created by a non-specialist instructor, and it is being received by some non-specialist, and especially the purpose of this sample is language learning. Okay, so the authenticity would be very, very weak because the purpose is language learning. So there is some problem with the extraction of that sample. Okay, moreover, this is created by someone who does not specialize in the field, or maybe new in the field of language teaching. Okay, then the authenticity increases if this is created by a learner or instructor who's a member of target discourse community. Okay, just not the native speaker, but he is a member of the target discourse community. He's living there, he's interacting with people all the time, he knows the availability of the samples, and he knows what kind of conversation might make an authentic sample. Okay, and the receivers are also learners who are in the target discourse community. They are also interacting in the native environment, and this can be a combination, language learning combined with recognized communicative purpose. So this is not for the learning purposes, but this is of course authentic material, and this is for communicative purposes. Still, this is not the strongest kind of authentic sample, right? But a better one. So what is the strongest authentic sample is, which is created by full member of the target discourse community, that is the one who is actually living there. Full members of the target discourse community are the receivers, people who need the language for actual purposes, and this is recognized communicative purpose. The purpose is not language learning, but the purpose of this produced communication was for the communicative purpose. And that happens to be the strongest authentic material. So the weakest one has a purpose of language learning, and the strongest one is taken as created, not created, selected from the actual recognized communication. Okay, when the purpose of the authentic material or the sample that we are using, the purpose was communication, then that's the most authentic material. And when the purpose is language learning, that is weak on authenticity, right? So other than that, we can just read a few difficulties that I have told you. You can read it from here. And let's see how you can address these problems. To address this problem, you might choose to gradually introduce learners to such material using artificial or simplified material as a scaffold. Okay, start with the authentic material, but the simple one. Another problem with highly authentic material is that they can sometimes be boring. Okay, so they might not motivate the students. A related issue with authentic material may be taken from target language context that is quite removed. Students cannot relate their context to the context in which the sample is produced. Okay, so without this contextual knowledge, the material may simply baffle or confuse the learners unless the instructor works hard to provide the necessary background. Authenticity increases as much as the sample is embedded in the context. Okay, so they are not created for the purpose of language teaching. And the skill of an ESP learned instructor is to know when to use artificial material and when to use material at different stages of authenticity. So what you can do, because you are getting people with different experiences, expectations, and knowledge, so you can work with a good combination of artificial material and the authentic material, but with experience and with expertise, you will get to know when to use which material and in which proportion. Okay, so by the end of this chapter, which was deciding material and method in ESP, we came to know that all kinds of material can be brought in the classrooms for different purposes, but what you need to take care of is to use your expertise of the field by making use of the technology as well, when to use artificial material and when to use authentic material in what proportion, and how to deal with them and how to align them with the proper methods. Okay, so there is no dearth of material, we can conclude, but it is actually the handling of the material by ESP instructors or ESP designers. Okay, so that with that we come to the end of this chapter, and tomorrow we are going to start a new chapter. We'll see how far we can do before Eid break. Okay.